Hey there, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this next installment of our Manager 101 webinars here at Leadr. Today, we're going to be talking about setting clear goals that drive individual action. And as we get started, let me introduce myself. I'm Dan Cogswell, and I am the Director of Customer Growth here at Leadr. I started actually as someone who worked somewhere else and implemented Leadr at our organization. And then I just caught so much fascination for and desire around the ability of a tool to help managers become better leaders that I had to jump on board. So I've been here for about a year and a half now. Can't wait to spend some time with you today. So as we have people who are hopping in, what I would love for you to do is to answer a question for me, okay? Now, this is a simple question, and I'm curious to hear your responses, but it may not be some simple responses, okay? So the question for you is this, and it's one of our co-founders, Chris, his favorite questions. And this question is, are you winning? Okay, so go ahead, respond in the chat. Are you winning as we get started here with our time? I love it. Donna says yes immediately. Jen says nope immediately. Okay, so we have both ends of the spectrum, and we're clear. At least we're clear, except for Lindsay, who's unclear. So we will hopefully, as we're getting into this, understanding are you winning, we'll be able to help create some clarity around goals that matter, how they matter for the organization, and how you can drive individual action connected to those goals. So that's what we're going to be spending time on today. And at the end of our time, we're actually going to have some time for question and answer at the end of this. But also, if you are responding, please click over to everyone, not just hosts and panelists. But if you can click over to everyone, then we can all interact together in the time that we have. So that'd be great. And then what we're going to do in the question time at the end is we'll answer as many questions as we can. We got some questions actually before our time started. And if not, then you can definitely get your questions answered either by emailing hello@leadr.com, or you can shoot a note to your customer success manager if you are utilizing the Leadr platform and part of what's happening here. So again, as a reminder, if you are in chat, please click over to everyone. And the question we're asking is, are you winning? Okay, are you winning? Another quick thought, some housekeeping items as we continue to grow together is this idea that afterwards, we're actually going to send an email out to you. And of course, it'll have the replay link from our time together, and then also some additional resources on goals and some articles for you to process with your team. All right. So, Justin, I love that, plead the fifth. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. For me in particular, I have spent time like many of you where I've been an individual contributor, I've been a manager, and I've also had an opportunity to lead in some executive leadership. And so it's really fun to get to take something that I've had to learn and continue to learn in and grow in, where I've made some really big mistakes in setting goals and helping people be effective, as well as had some really great successes. So as we're spending time together today, before we get started here, we'll get started here in just a moment, the goal is for you to have one thing that you take away from today. So it might be an idea or a thought that you continue to wrestle with as you're processing how you can be more effective in setting and achieving goals. Or it might be a step that you need to take as it relates to actually implementing a goal, or doing some more research around a set or systems or ways of goals. So anyway, I am looking forward to the time. But yeah, answer questions along the way. Feel free to put questions or comments in the chat as we go. It's me here, and so that'll help to make the time the most effective for you. We also have some of our team on the line who can help with answering some questions as well. So, all right, you all ready? Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's get this clicking. Okay, so here's our agenda. It's really simple. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to split our time. Okay, so we're going to split our time between like some theory or some best practices around goals. And then we're going to take the second part of our time and really talk about utilizing Leadr to achieve those goals, how you can actually utilize the tool to document and track all those goals. So really, it's kind of this idea of we're going to spend the first part of our time together kind of lecture of ideas and some thoughts around goals and best practices. And then we're going to move to our second part of our conversation, which is more of the lab part, where you can really, if you have Leadr, you can start to build some things out practically together as we move forward. So here's the next one. Let's go. Okay, everything's clicking correctly. So let's go. At the beginning of our time, I asked, are you winning? Now, for the good portion of us, we know that our time gets filled. Like our CEO here at Leadr says, he consistently says, I'm not bored. He's not bored. He's not looking necessarily for more things to do. But if we're honest, some of us are uncertain if what fills our time is actually connected to helping our team or our organization win. We just know that, like Marty McFly, we're asking Doc, hey, where are we going for the organization? And the answer is to the future. That's where we're going. But we're not sure how what we does impacts where we're going and if it matters. So we're going to spend some time talking about that today. As I was preparing for our time, I stumbled across this quote, which I just absolutely hated and loved. It's a quote from Bill Copeland, and it says this. It says, the trouble with not having a goal is that you can spend your life running up and down the field and never score. I don't want to live a life like that. And we spend way too much time at work to not know whether we're scoring or whether we're winning together. So like I said, the first part of our time is really going to be on the theory, kind of some theories or best practices around goals. And actually, we're going to be covering 4 good goal reminders that come from this book, Management is Dead. Now, if you've not heard of this book yet, it's actually one that is on pre-sale right now. So if you go to managementisdead.com, you can actually sign up for the pre-sale and get a bundle from our team. But what I enjoy about this book is it is written by our co-founders, Matt and Chris. And it's all about what they learned, how they're growing, and how to really lead a team from a really effective position of people development. And so we're going to spend time in this as we move forward. And as a reminder, I mean, Leadr really it's a people platform that makes managers better leaders. And it does this by moving companies from disengaged performance management to measurable people development. All right, so let's hop in to our first good goal reminder. All right, the first one is this. Goals must be clear and effective. Goals got to be clear and effective. I really like to think of goals that they need to be ambitious, but also specific. The goal of where are we going to the future isn't really that specific, even though it might be kind of ambitious. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on being specific in your goals. If you think of SMART goals, the S is specific in that case. I found a quote from Michelangelo, my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Hey, in chat, maybe you're like, I don't know who the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are, and that's okay. My real favorite is actually Leonardo, but I'd love to hear who's your favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Let me know in the chat. But what he says is the great danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. Another quote I found related to goals was this idea. It was actually a study, but it says that 90% of studies challenging and specific goals resulted in better performance than easy goals, no goals, or do your best goals. So actually having something that you're aiming at is really important, and ensuring that it's something that's going to require effort to get there is also really important. So I thought it might be helpful to chat through what are some unclear goals and what are some clear goals. So here, these might be really obvious, but I think often we set ourselves up for these types of things, either personally or professionally in what we do. So some unclear goals are, hey, I want to live a healthier life, or hey, for our organization, we really want to grow our revenue, or hey, for our organization, we really want to grow our weekly engagement or attendance. Those aren't necessarily bad things, right? Those are good things, but they're just hard to get your hands around and actually take action on because they're unclear. So here's some ways to clarify those unclear goals. So, hey, for living a healthier life, let's get specific about it. I want to follow a macros nutrition plan and exercise at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes. It's clear. Hey, for revenue, we want to increase our top line revenue by 15% in Q2 by increasing market share in category X and Y. Specific, it's clear. And the last one is this: we want to grow our average weekly engagement or attendance by 7% in May compared to April. So having goals that are ambitious and specific is really, really helpful. Okay, here's the next good goal reminder. All right, goals should have both carrots and sticks. If it's worth everyone's focus, then the carrots are the reward and the sticks or the consequences should be meaningful. So what we have seen is that carrots that are based on team goals create top-down leadership with bottoms-up peer-to-peer pressure. Because if it's our goal as a team to achieve, then we're all on board with making it happen. And then some sticks, they outline the real or likely consequences of not achieving the shared goal. They ground why the goal matters in reality. So it might be, let's pick our market share one, to grow revenue by 15%. Hey, over the next quarter, it's really important that we grow our market share by 15% because there's a new competitor who is gobbling up market share. And if we don't stake our claim and move aggressively into these categories, we may lose more market share than we can afford. And it's going to impact our ability to remain profitable and to remain sustainable in our current state and form, and then get specific about what that might mean for people. So anyway, having goals should have both carrots and sticks. Okay, so here's some thoughts about carrots and sticks. Clear results are needed. So you can have a clear goal, but if you don't have a clear result connected to that goal, then you don't know what it's worth working towards. So like, let's say the carrot is, if we achieve our goal of 15% revenue, then we're going to give everybody a paid week off the first week of July over the 4th of July holiday. So if we meet our goal, then we're going to get this carrot. So they need to be based upon clear results so everybody knows if they've achieved the goal or not. An additional thing is carrots can be one big reward for everyone, or it could be something that's based upon each team. So you could say let's say you're the executive leader and you have teams who are all working together to achieve a goal. You could say, hey, you have a budget of $10,000 a piece. I'm just picking numbers, $10,000 a piece to reward your team when we meet this goal. And then you could also have something together. So think about something that's substantial. Think about something that matters. And it doesn't always have to be something that's connected to money or compensation, but that it doesn't hurt. So think of something that's going to be meaningful for the team that you have. Here's something else about sticks. So the challenge is sticks should not just be about losing your job. If we don't do this, you are going to lose your job. Sometimes there's that reality and there is that challenge, but it could be, something like, hey, if we don't achieve this goal, then we're going to lose the opportunity to blank. And that matters to you because of blank. And here's something else that we figured out, that people are more motivated by the fear of loss than they are by what they're going to gain. So don't manipulate people, but just be aware that having carrots and sticks can be helpful. I saw that somebody was asking, what non-monetary carrots do you recommend? This is literally just brainstorming right now. It could be things like, let's say for your company, you have a cultural value around like serving your community or making an impact in your community, like you value community service, you could give somebody an extra, an extra half a day or a full day to go do some community work together. And that would be a reward to them because it's something they care about and they're invested in, but they don't necessarily feel like they can take the time to go to. So you can pay them for that time and they can go do that. Something else that could be, non-monetary might be something like you could do a like a get together for the team that's like a lunch, and you are recognizing the people who did exceptional work during the time of that goal, and what you're doing is you're affirming them in front of everybody else with some sort of award or at least some sort of communication that the work they did mattered and was noticed. It could be things like really smaller gifts. So it could be a Starbucks gift card or a DoorDash gift card or something like that. But my encouragement to you would be send it with a handwritten note, because a handwritten note is really something that is a pattern interrupt for most of us because we don't really receive a lot of those. So it doesn't have to be over the top. I think just think about what could be meaningful to that person or what might be meaningful to you, and just take a step towards that. So utilize some creativity there. The last thought about carrots and sticks is that while they are helpful, they don't make nearly as much difference as the next two goal reminders. Okay, so while they're helpful, they don't make nearly as much difference or as much impact as the next two goal reminders. So let's take a look. Okay, the third one is this. The good goal reminder is to empower your people to reach those goals. So do your people have what they need to achieve the goal? Have you given them the authority to also produce on the responsibility that you've given them? Now, inside of this, I noted Leadr Insights. And for those of you who have it, you know exactly what it's about and all of the incredible data that it gives you. But really, it's whether you have Leadr Insights or not, Leadr Insights is designed to measure engagement over time through the following three areas. So through clarity, through maximization, and rapport. And so the idea is, do people know what is necessary to win in their role? For clarity. For maximization, do they have the resources to perform at their best? And then rapport is, are you connected to your organization's missions and goals? Do you have trust in what's happening? And are you connected to those pieces? So when we give people a challenging goal that they're striving towards, but we don't understand the obstacles or the challenges or the resources that they need to achieve those goals, we've effectively set up our teams for a mission that they can't accomplish. And people like to be challenged. They like to be part of something that's new and that is going to help move the needle for their organization and for what's happening. But when we give people a bold vision or a bold goal to go follow, and then we don't follow that up with the understanding of their context, the resources they need, the obstacles they might have, it's really challenging. It's really frustrating. It can leave your team in a space where they know what they want to do, but they feel defeated and like they can't go do it. So understanding how to empower your people to reach those goals can be really helpful. And it could be questions like this. It could be questions that you ask your team like, hey, where am I bottlenecking you, or what decisions do you need me to make? And see what they have to say. Maybe the question is, hey, what obstacles are in your way from achieving this goal that I can remove for you? Maybe sometimes it's really simple stuff. It's hey, I need a different admin view into a current system that we have for this particular reason. And because I don't have it, I don't have access or visibility to the data I need to make decisions that move this forward. So it's really getting your hands dirty, so to speak, and understanding what is needed from your team, what is preventing them from being able to get to where they want to go, and then finding a way, removing those obstacles, clearing those boundaries so that they know you believe that they can go do it, and you're giving them the resources to go accomplish those things. If you have insights, one last quick thing is you can see how people are trending over time. So you can actually see if your people have feel like they have the clarity, the maximization, and the rapport that they need. So another piece connected to making sure that your people are empowered is they may not have time based upon their current role and responsibilities to contribute in the way that you're wanting them to contribute. So helping people have a conversation about how they're spending their time and if they have time to work or dedicate the amount of resource required to the goal could be really helpful. Sometimes people get hung up because they don't feel like they have permission to ask questions or to drive something to completion. And so helping interact with somebody to understand what mental blocks might be in place from them achieving their goals could also be something that's there. And then one last thought about this is that sometimes you have to, as a leader, you have to extend your belief and your confidence in someone's ability to them until they start to believe it themselves. Sometimes we get hung up in imposter syndrome or in feeling like we don't have what it takes to accomplish what we need to. And for a moment, we just need to borrow someone else's confidence, or we need to borrow someone else's hope or optimism around what's happening so that we can go do the things that we need to do. I know I've definitely needed that in my life. And have been really fortunate to have people who see more in me than what I see in myself sometimes. And I've had the opportunity to extend that to people I've had the chance to lead as well. So empowering your people to accomplish the goals is really, really important. Okay, last goal reminder for us before we get into what you do with it is, while people like to achieve goals, people work for people. So I say it like this: a clear goal isn't enough. People need safety and trust to perform at their best. There's an article in Forbes, and it says, one thing that is abundantly clear to anybody in leadership, and that's you, whether your title says you're in leadership or not, we all have a level of leadership, is that one of the most important elements of high performing teams is the relationships between the people in them. To go a little bit further, this is connected to and based off of this idea of Project Aristotle. So Google, I think it was in like 2012, 2013, they actually did a 2-year study and dedicated a ton of resource into researching and understanding what builds the best team. And there was 5 traits that came up of the best teams. And the number one trait, far and above, was psychological safety. And psychological safety effectively means we have the room and the space to make a mistake or to speak your mind without being punished. Now, this isn't licensed to be brazen, to disregard others, to operate in a way that isn't necessarily your best self. But what it means is that people feel the freedom to know we're all working on this problem together and we're working to solve it. And because I know we're all on the same side of the table looking at the problem, not facing each other, trying to fight each other, we have space and trust to know, and it gets built over time, that we can go and execute the goal. If you haven't read 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Lencioni, like immediately right after this, or even right now, just go ahead and order that book. Get a hard copy of it, listen to it on Audible, get the Cliff Notes somewhere. But it really deals with this foundation of trust that has to be established in order for teams to really function the way that they need to. So again, Leadr is this people platform. It's designed to make managers better leaders. It's called the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Angelica, the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Hey, thank you, Leadr marketing team, for grabbing that and sending it out. So that's a great place to look. But the whole idea is that if we only focus on the goal, the clarity or the priority of the goal, and managing the performance around it, but we don't actually give our people trust, we don't actually care for and develop our people, it's not going to lead you where you want to go. In fact, Google actually, in that study, they made some assumptions. They thought, hey, the best teams are going to be teams that have the most balanced set of hard skills, or it might be a team that potentially comes from a similar background or worldview. And what they discovered, again, is that the number one factor to high performing teams, the best thing that you can do is create psychological safety and trust. One of the best ways that you can do that is by utilizing this cool tool. It's called Leadr. But what you see here is actually have taken a snapshot, a screenshot of my care card with some of the detail there. And people development is really this idea. It's not just caring for somebody, it's caring for them personally, but also challenging them directly, which is really the radical candor model. If you don't have that book, also go get that one or check it out. But it's this ability to do both. It's this ability to really care about who the person is and who they're becoming, and care about what they're accomplishing, and if they are leveling up in their skills and abilities and things like that. So at Leadr, what we do is we actually recommend that for each of your one-on-ones, that you include 3 key areas or 3 key topics that you really spend time in. And those are care, development, and performance. Care, development, and performance. I would go so far as to say, as we're wrapping up kind of this top part around goal theory, is that while these are some good goal reminders, having them be clear and effective, having carrots and sticks, empowering your people, and people working for people, not just working to achieve goals. The reason most organizations fail to meet their goals is not because they don't make goals a priority. It's because they've failed to make their people a priority in accomplishing those goals. And that's why it was really important for us as we were working around goal setting and helping to drive individual action, not just to dive right into how can you do that inside of the tool. That's why we wanted to spend some time really talking about starting with your people and thinking theoretically and a little bit of a higher level about goals, what they are, and how to accomplish them with your people so that they actually care about them and help drive them to success. Okay, so we're done with the first part around like goal setting theory and what's happening. And now what we're actually going to do is we're going to go to how do you actually do this inside of the tool? How can you utilize Leadr to set some goals that actually work? Now, as you know, anybody who's been around anything for a while knows there's a million different ways and techniques for you to track goals. I think some of these are made up. I actually found these on the interwebs, so who knows? But some of them don't even sound real. Whoop goals? What is that? I'm not sure. We're actually going to spend the majority of our time in OKRs and EOS or traction. And OKRs, it's really this objectives and key results is what it stands for. And it's the framework, right? So objectives and key results, OKRs are the framework where KPIs or key performance indicators are the measurements that exist within that framework to help accomplish the goals. Similarly, EOS or traction it's an operating system. It's the entrepreneurial operating system. And again, it has a framework or a set of ideas and principles that it's based upon like 6 core components: vision, people, data, issues, processes, and traction. And so these two there's a lot of things about these 2 tools that I think are really helpful when it comes to setting and achieving goals. So what I would recommend is don't get hung up in what is the absolute best technique for you to utilize when it comes to setting goals. What I would recommend you do actually is find one and just start. See how it works for you. And if it doesn't work for you, great. Iterate, modify, adjust. But I think sometimes we get so hung up on, is it the perfect or best thing? And we limit our ability to actually make progress because we either want to be all in or not, versus knowing, here's the idea, let's work towards it together. All right, so when it comes to Leadr, here's how you can actually utilize it. So this is a screenshot of Leadr Home, and it has all of your people metrics in one place. It's really your people platform, as I said before. And up in the upper right-hand corner, you can actually see there's this spot that highlights at a really high level your goals. So it's any goal that you're connected to. So if it's an organizational goal, if it's a team goal, if it's a personal goal, any goal that you're connected to inside of Leadr is actually right there for you to get a quick snapshot, just enough data to understand, hey, is it going well? How complete is it? And where is that goal actually at? And then for setting the actual goal, I mean, I'm going to go click by click. So hopefully this is helpful to you. If real quick note, if you have Leadr and you're here because you're looking for really practical ways on how can I actually set a goal up inside of my tool, pause right now, open your Leadr instance and go ahead and click along with me, even if it's a fake goal or just a personal goal, so that you can get more comfortable with utilizing the tool so that you can set goals and drive them to completion for your team members, okay? All right, so as we're hopping back in here, you can go to goals on the table of contents to the left, the queue there. And then there's really 4 different areas inside of goals. Once you create you click a goal and create it. And it's going to prompt you for all of these things, but it's the overview, sharing, actions, and then status. So you can see here, I'm grabbing the example from earlier of increasing revenue by 15%. And just so you know, I'm going to set this, it's going to be like from the top. So this is the executive level view of if we're creating a goal and connecting everybody to it. And then what we'll do is we'll go to like a team or a department for this same goal. And then what we'll do is we'll actually go to an individual who's connected to that same goal, okay? So we're gonna start from the top and then we're gonna work our way down to the individual contributor who's helping to accomplish this goal, all right? So you click on overview, you can set the time frame for it, you can give some quick notes about what it is and what's happening with it. This is the fake company that says, we're gonna get off that first week in July, which I think I'm probably gonna submit that idea later. Not gonna lie, right? But here we are, we're in this space. And then what you can actually do is you can select who the owner of that goal is going to be. So you can actually select somebody, I picked myself, and then you can actually add anybody who you want to be able to speak into it, to be able to update their action items and update status of the goal. You can actually add those people directly to the goal inside of Leadr. And then what can happen is when you go to overview and then sharing, is you can see the overview is that, hey, here's the things that we're working to accomplish together. And then here's the one who's going to be responsible for it. So, hey, Garrett on our team, he's in charge of many things, but he's going to be the one who is going to hold everybody else accountable to accomplishing this goal of driving revenue up 15% over the next quarter. And then the reason, just real quick note, the reason that that we have one person who's responsible for it is because otherwise what happens is we all stand around and look at each other after the goal is supposed to be accomplished or during the progress of the goal. And we say, wait, am I doing it? Are you doing it? Are we doing it? Who's responsible for actually driving accountability and progress and ensuring that things are happening? So it's really important for you, for yourself, for your teams, to make sure that you have one person who's accountable for how the goal is going, the actual owner of the goal, especially when you have cross-functional teammates who are working on the same goal. It is that much more important to pick somebody who can navigate all of that inside of your organization and who is going to be ultimately responsible to the executive team, the CEO, the board, the whomever you have that is holding you accountable so that you can confidently know who's responsible for the goal. So anyway, yeah, Spider-Man meme, let's not end up in that scenario at the end of our goals. And then the last thing is this, you can update the status. So what happens over time is you're providing status updates. And when you do any of these updates, it actually sends an email to those who are connected to the goal. So in this scenario, it's about 10% of the way there. And it's, hey, we created the goal, we assigned the ownership to Garrett, and the teams that are responsible for presenting back to the executive team are working on the strategy, and they have a time that they're going to be presenting it back. Okay, so we start really broadly, what it is, and then we just work through the process of who's connected to it. What are the actions we're going to take to accomplish that? and what's the status of it? Are we updating this project in a timely manner? Okay, so that's a really high level of what it might look like. Okay, so now let's look at the second level of this, which would really be, you move from the executive team and now you're really dealing with a team or a department. So what's happened is they are taking the overall goal, increasing revenue by 15%, and moving it to our team. What's our responsibility for that? And the VPs, the directors, the whomever who's leading that charge really needs to get in there and work with the team to understand, here's the overall goal, here's why it matters, and then here's how I bring my people along and the things we're going to focus on to help drive this goal to completion. So a similar flow where you actually can create the overview of what the goal is, start date, end date, any of those things. You can set the goal again with an owner and then anybody who's collaborating on it. And then you can see that there's a couple different pieces of action items that are put in here. So I'm going to read these just because I think it's helpful from a really practical standpoint to explore these together. So it's this goal of increasing revenue by 15% for the marketing team. So what you might even do, sometimes when I'm making a to-do list, the first thing I like to put on a to-do list is make to-do list, and then I can check that off. Maybe I'm the only one, but maybe you do it too. But in this scenario, it's, hey, we're just going to spend time brainstorming on how do we accomplish this? What are the things that we have in our control that we can help to engage, to either ramp up or to start doing or stop doing or pay attention to strategically over this next quarter to really ensure that our team does everything we possibly can to own what's our responsibility in accomplishing this goal. So in this scenario, a couple examples are presenting that marketing strategy then to the exec team. And then there's a really tangible one of, hey, we're going to front load 250 additional marketing qualified opportunities in April to the sales team. So maybe we have a quarter goal, but because we want to give ourselves the best chance of accomplishing that goal in the quarter, we're going to front load some of our activities so that it gives the rest of the team, because we're early on in the process for the marketing team and helping everyone else achieve what we're working to achieve. All right. And then the last thing would just be, hey, the status updates. So on this scenario, you can see we've moved along the journey quite a ways, but it's yellow. So we're a little bit behind where, and there should be a little bit of the update or the reasoning behind the stoplight being yellow here. So you can see the strategies were defined and presented. MQOs are slightly behind, so they're at 200 versus 250. But we're going to recover the additional 50 MQOs through the awesome conference next week, definitely fake name, and expect to fully recover and exceed the MQO quantity. So for me, if I'm a team leader or an executive and I'm looking to understand what's happening, I can get some really clear ideas and visibility into how things are going because I'm seeing the updates that are there. All right, we're going to go down one more level again, and then this will be the end of how you actually work through these things inside of Leadr. But this is from the teammate to the individual. So what you can see here is it's a screenshot of what a one-on-one looks like. And right across the top, you can see that there are shared goals that person is responsible for. And inside of it, you can see there's a question about how you're moving forward with your goals. So it's something that's just a consistent conversation. Again, maybe some of those questions around, do you have the resources you need to accomplish the goal? What barriers or impediments are in your place? Where am I bottlenecking you, or what decisions do you need from me? And you can really explore clearing and removing obstacles for your team so that that person has everything they possibly need to be able to go ahead and move forward on accomplishing the goal. Because if they do that, then the team achieves their goal. And if the team is having the same conversation between teams, then the organization achieves their goal. So that's how you do it. But the goals are right across the top of the one-on-one. And then you can see here's some individual goals connected to the team goal. So in this scenario, I'm utilizing Courtney and I, and it's, hey, for the revenue goal, Courtney, identify some expansion opportunities, find a specific number of referrals, and then let's have a consistent meeting cross-functionally between teams of aligning on the key milestones for the actual project. So you can see the status again is there. it's on track. There's been 4 referrals completed, 2 expansions identified and in progress, and we've scheduled the bi-weekly meeting for these cross-functional goals. So it doesn't have to be a whole journal or paper on what's happening, but it should be a really easy way just to keep track of what's most important. Because otherwise what happens is we have these ideas, and sometimes they're unclear, but we have these goals that we're thinking about or working on, and then we don't really have any practical way to measure those or to put those in place. And then sometimes what we're tempted to do is we get to the end of the time period, maybe it's the end of the year or the end of the quarter, and we adjust our goals to meet the realities or the deliverables that we actually achieved versus setting them on the front end and measuring them through the whole time. So that's how you can utilize Leadr to see exactly how your goals are working. Now, a brief note on EOS as well as OKRs. You have to have this regular rhythm of checking in on the progress. You know, we've set the goals, we have clear things around them, and we're updating them. But if we do that, but nobody's communicating, then there's going to be things that are missed. There's going to be precious days that are going to be missed because there's an issue and we didn't take the time to have a conversation about it. And we waited until next week to actually have it. So having a consistent check-in on how things are going and how the goal is progressing is really, really essential. And one of the things I actually love about EOS is the whole idea with EOS, as you know, if you utilize it, is it really focuses on like 90-day big rocks. What are the big things we need to work on and accomplish every single week? And it also implements this idea of a level 10 pulse meeting or an L10 pulse meeting, which has a specific set of topics and agenda items that you cover. But it keeps the most important things that you're all working on as an organization in front of you. And it gives inside of Leadr the ability for you to make comments, to have conversations about how those things are going. So that way, when you show up to your pulse meeting, you can really be the most effective as possible because you have already surfaced and highlighted where we're winning, what are the challenges, what are we doing about it? And you can really focus in on what are the pieces we need to discuss in this room that help us to move forward. I don't know about you, but I've definitely been in at least one meeting where it felt like that could have been an email. Anybody else? For sure, I've had that. Not today, fortunately, not this week, but I have definitely been in meetings where I'm like, hey, you could have just sent me an email and I would have made this happen. And it's just not the best use of our people's time. I think one of the things when it connects to goals or what we're all aiming at, what we have to really do is have this candid view of, what are we doing? Is it actually the most important? Is it helping us move forward? Are we paying attention to the things that we need to? And if not, we need to have the conversation about, well, if we want to accomplish this thing that was a priority last week, is it still a priority or is this now the new priority? And so just having those active coaching conversations and feedback is really, really essential to going forward. All right. So here's some last thoughts, some reminders and tips, and then we'll hop into some Q&A time because I want to answer your questions. I want to spend some time ensuring that this was really helpful and effective for you. So here's some reminders and tips as it relates to goals. All right, the first one is this. Setting and forgetting a goal is easy to do. Most of us do it. I actually, something I'm toying with, and I'm saying it here on a webinar now, so maybe I have to do it, but I'm thinking about, look at me trying to get out of it. I'm thinking about running a marathon this year. I've never run a marathon. I played a lot of sports growing up. I played soccer as well as other things. And I've run some 5Ks and things like that. But I've never run a marathon. And I thought, why not? I should do it. I want to be able to say that I've run a marathon. So if you've run a marathon, let me know either to definitely do it or not do it or send best tips and tricks. But like if I said, hey, I'm going to run a marathon, and then I don't do anything about it. I set the goal, but I don't do anything about it. It's really easy to forget about it. So having a way like Leadr where you can set the goal and keep track of it and who's owning what pieces of it is really, really essential to what's happening. Okay. So again, the highest performing teams aren't just clear on the goal. They're safe to explore, contribute, and to learn. If you are doing something that is ambitious, that is challenging, that is going to push everybody, to reach beyond what their current capacity is, you are gonna have places where you fail. You're gonna have places where you stumble. You're gonna have places where you made a mistake. There's gonna be things that happen that don't go perfectly. In fact, if you aren't pushing yourself to those places, my guess is you're playing it too safe. And so in this scenario where we are setting ambitious and clear goals, it's really, really essential to create that psychological safety where we are understanding people and we're leading the team and we know our people so we can set them up to win. So really focus on understanding that it's not just setting the goal and achieving it through performance management. It's really creating that psychological safety for your people. Sometimes, here's another one. I've been in places where we don't have clear goals. And at least for me, and research would also indicate this, when there's not clear goals or we're not clear on how what we're doing is connected to that goal, it's a really uninspiring and apathetic place. It helps us, it makes us feel disengaged because we're not certain about if our manager is looking out for us, if our leader is looking out for us, and there is work that we're doing that is meaningful and contributes to something greater than ourselves. So not having clear goals is it's a red flag. It's something you should definitely pay attention to. Another one is this: annual goals are great, but they need shorter milestones. That's why I personally really enjoy having 90-day goals. So like the 90-day rocks inside of EOS, what that recommends, and utilizing those. So you can have annual goals, that's great, but be sure that you break those down or find milestones, because the worst thing that can happen is you have an idea at the beginning of the year, you execute it faithfully throughout the year, and you get to the end of the year and realize that goal wasn't the right goal, or that goal we really didn't start working on until the last 3 months because we had all of this time. So that's something else I'd recommend. Another thing I'd recommend or remind us of is that everyone has something to contribute. So focus on the inputs that drive outcomes. We need to measure outcomes, but if we can find the inputs, the leading indicators that lead to the lagging indicators, those are the things we can really lead from and manage, because outputs take time. And so if we can pay attention to the inputs, it'll make sense for the outputs. Another piece is this, that you really need to evaluate progress as you go. Again, if you have shorter timeframes, it's helpful, but if you don't evaluate progress, you might end up in a really challenging scenario where you discover that the initial idea or focus or goal that you had was not the right focus. And if you don't measure progress or evaluate progress as you go, you could be in a spot where you think you're aiming at the right thing, but then you discover that you're not. And then you've wasted all this time, all of this resource on something that isn't actually relevant and isn't going to move the needle. So the last thought is, if you discover your goal is the wrong goal, be courageous enough to admit it. Be courageous enough to admit it, change course, share why you the other thing would be share why it is you now understand it's the wrong course. Hey, I thought what was going to be most important is this, but as we've been pursuing this, what I've come to realize and understand is we were close, but we actually need to track this. And I realize that's a big deal because we've all been driving towards this. Here's the reason and the research and the indicators that are telling me this is the way that we need to go now. And so we're going to pursue this for the rest of the quarter or for the rest of the year. The other side of that is don't change your mind every day. Pick things that actually are going to matter and that can be pursued for some time, and we will get to it. All right. So last thought, and then let's get into some Q&A. One of my favorite quotes is actually from the Rear Admiral Grace Harper. And she says this, she says, "You manage things and you lead people." I think it's worth saying again, so I'm going to. You manage things and you lead people. We've went overboard on management and forgotten about leadership. So the theories, the goals around what we're doing and why it matters, and not just prioritizing our goals, but prioritizing our people to accomplish those goals, is really, really essential, especially in this day and age. All right, so here's a question we got actually before, as someone who registered for the webinar and sent this question in. So we're going to go ahead and spend time on this one, and then please drop your questions into the chat and send them in. We'll answer as many as we can here with the last 8 to 10 minutes that we have on the clock. So here's the question. How can we make sure that the goal we set in place for an employee or even ourselves is the most important goal to reach that year? Great question. Great question. Sometimes I've found that asking the right question actually leads to the right answer versus just having all the right answers. What I would ask whomever asked this question is I would ask those who you trust, who are in your team and who you know are like have insight into what's happening. Is this the most important? And then sometimes I like to, sometimes I take the position of what my kids, when they were younger, they used to ask this question all the time. Maybe you've heard it before. Why? Hey, bud, I've been talking to my son. Hey, bud, we're going to do tonight for dinner, we're going to have spaghetti. Why? Well, because we can have some vegetables with it and some other things, and it's fairly inexpensive and pretty easy to make, and it'll help take care of things for our family tonight. Okay, but why? Because it's fun to eat. Okay, I don't know. You just keep asking the why question until you really get to the root of what you need to address. I think what I've seen myself and organizations do sometimes is we institute policies or make decisions based upon one-off scenarios or symptoms of what's happening, and we don't take the time to really ask the questions to get all the way to the root cause of what needs to be addressed. And so it's like we spend time addressing the fruit that the tree produces without understanding the issue is actually the root. It's the health of what's happening at the base of the tree connected to what's actually producing throughout the organization. So there's not a clear answer other than you really just need to spend time understanding it and asking questions and testing whether it's the right thing to spend time on or not. And then if it's not, be brave enough to say it isn't. We figured things out. We learned. We're growing. We're going to make an adjustment and move forward. Okay. When it comes to, let's see here, we are currently trying to get the whole team on board with using goals. Do you have any feedback on selling goals to the team or motivating the non-tech folks to see the value in goals? Fantastic question. One time I was talking to a friend of mine who I worked with, and they were one of those people who didn't really set goals. They didn't really like goals. And I was working to understand that because it's important to me. I'm really motivated to understand, achieve goals, work on goals, and do those things. But when I was talking to this person, I said, hey, I noticed that you don't really have clear goals, or that the goals that you have, you don't really keep track of. Any insight into why that's happening? And what I discovered in that process was part of it was, hey, we don't have a good system. So to that answer, Leadr is a good system, but start with what you got, like whether it's a Post-it note, hey, you complete this one thing this week, and build the habit, build the muscle of doing goals. But the other thing that this person said was, I'm afraid that if I define a goal I want to achieve and I don't achieve it, I'm going to feel like a failure. Now that's getting to the root of something, okay? So what we were able to have a conversation about with that person was you adding, like you having goals and working on goals is something that is important for your growth. And if you don't have something that you're striving to achieve, what's going to happen is you're not going to continue to push yourself and grow, because by nature, we like to stay where we're at. We like have you heard the saying, we like the devil that we know. We like the comfort that we have. We prefer to stay with the status quo because it requires no more habit changing or things like that from us. So achieving goals really is essential. Another book, I'm reaching my quota now. So 3 books that I recommend. Atomic Habits, if you haven't read it, it really talks powerfully about how if you are not growing and working on goals, you're actually decaying and delaying to a spot of Like, it's really measurable. You grow tremendously when you make incremental improvements, but when you don't, you actually end up in a far worse spot. So it might be worth doing some research around those things. Here's another one. It says, how many goals should a church have in a 90-day period or in a year? Oh, great question. Church organization, I don't care what it is. It's another quick story for you. I worked at a company one time, and we were at our annual review, or like annual dinner. And the CEO came up and said, hey, for the next year, we've really been working hard behind the scenes, and we have the priorities and objectives for the company for the next year that we want to roll out to you. And we believe that these 78 priorities or objectives are going to be the key things that help us move forward. Don't do 78. It was too many. Okay. It was like, what? Do we even know what we're doing? That feels like we just weren't able to decide on what was going to make the biggest difference or be the consistent thing that helped to actually impact all of these other things. I'm going to sneak in another book, The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg. It's this whole idea of the one keystone habit impacts all the other things that you do. So it's connected inside of organizations. So I would recommend no more than 5. And I would recommend that you really focus on probably 3. So here's the 3 important things that we're really working on. If possible, really get to 1 and then have some key like objectives or things connected to this one idea. Because what we know about people is that if it's not memorable, it's not going to make a difference. It has to be able to stick in someone's mind so that when you ask, hey, what's the goal for this quarter, or what's the goal for this year? If they aren't able to say it right then it's going to be really, really challenging. Like right now at Leadr, if you said, hey, what's the priority for Leadr right now? I would tell you Project Salmon. And everybody on our team would say Project Salmon is the thing that we are focused on and working on. And we all have different parts to play, but there's that one unifying goal that is really connected to the things that we're working on and establishing as progress we're making here for the next year. Okay, so let's see here. We got 1, 2, 3 minutes here. Is there any last question we can answer before we hop off of the line and head on with the rest of our day? Any last question? There's this thought, this idea that if we only focus on prioritizing goals and we don't focus on prioritizing our people to accomplish those goals, you're gonna end up in a far worse spot than you are. So hopefully the time that we've spent together today has been helpful. If I didn't get to your question, please feel free to reach out. You can email your CSM, or you can reach out to us, hello@leadr.com. But feel free to reach back out and continue the conversation in those ways. We'll put out some information on the next Management 101 webinar that we'll be doing. And I hope that this was productive for you, that there's one thing that you can find, one idea, one thing you can put into practice that you can take with you today and move forward in. But otherwise, I just want to say thank you for joining. Hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next one.